Greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on the video. Today we're going to take a look at Korora 24. I got a message not too long ago from somebody who asked me to take a look at this, and I said, nah, I ordinarily don't look at RPM-based Linux, but I kind of like what they've done here, and I've been playing with it for a while, and it's really cool. Korora 24 comes to us from our friends in Australia, and it is a remix of Fedora Linux. The Korora 24 Sheldon version was just released. The code name is Sheldon, and I really don't know what they mean here where they say now with more cowbell. Now, if you are new to Linux, and if you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably noticed that I talk a lot about Ubuntu, Debian, stuff like that. And that's because those distributions tend to be a little bit more new user friendly. RPM distributions, and we're talking about Fedora, we're talking about Red Hat, and we're talking about CentOS, and OpenSUSE uses RPM packaging as well, but they're kind of off in their own little world a little bit. They tend to be more geared toward advanced users and more geared toward enterprise applications. So if we jump over here to the Fedora site, you'll notice we have three different versions available. We have a workstation, which is sort of kind of like a desktop, and then we have the server, and then we have the cloud version of Fedora. Now, if you were going to download the workstation, and if you were relatively new to Linux, you probably might find it very frustrating to get it set up to actually do what you need it to do, because you need to add a bunch of repositories. You have to go find all of the codecs and drivers. It's all manual. None of it's automated for you, and that's just kind of the way Fedora works. Years ago, there used to be a program called Fedora Plus, which was pretty cool, and it would allow you to go get that stuff. I don't know if they have anything like that today, but I've always found Fedora to be a little bit too difficult to work with to use as a desktop. Fedora is sponsored by Red Hat, and Red Hat is one of the oldest distributions of Linux. And when we say that it is an RPM-based Linux, that's because we're talking about Red Hat package management. Okay, that's where that comes from. And you can come to the Fedora site and read more about it. Essentially, Fedora is the research and development wing of the Red Hat company. Red Hat Linux is not free to download. It is sold, and you have to buy a license to be able to use it. And corporations just love it to run their servers and their enterprise stuff on, because when they buy that license, they get this monster support. And if anything goes wrong with it, they can pick up the phone and they have a tech out there really quick. It's just an amazing distribution of Linux. And then there's CentOS, which is like an open source version of Red Hat. CentOS used to be independent, but now it's actually part of the Red Hat company. And that is like Red Hat, but you don't get any of the support. It's kind of like you're on your own. You know what I mean? A lot of people in business use CentOS if they're comfortable with supporting it themselves. So that's kind of a little bit of an introduction to that world. Okay, you know, Fedora is cutting edge. It's kind of a research distribution, and so therefore it tends to be a little bit difficult to get going with. The Korora folks have decided that they're going to do for Fedora what Linux Mint did for Ubuntu about 10 years ago, and that is to smooth off the rough edges, and when you install it, hey, you're going to get a fully functional desktop that you can use, and you're not going to have to go hunting for codecs and things like that to get it going, and they give you pretty much all the software you could ever need. To download your copy, if you would like to play with this, just click try it here. Still don't know what that cowbell thing means. And we got a couple of versions available to us. We've got 24, which is the most recent, and 23. And the version 23 is available in 32 and 64-bit architecture, and version 24 is only available in 64-bit. You can choose a desktop here. They have the little Linux Mint sign. That's the Cinnamon desktop. we have the XFCE desktop, the Mate desktop, and we have a Gnome desktop. So choose your desktop and then click this button here for an HTTP download, and it will take you over to SourceForge, and you will download a very large installer file. It is about 2 gigabytes, and then you can install the system. It uses the Anaconda installer, which is part of Fedora. And if you have installed Linux before, it's really not that hard to figure it out, but it doesn't work in a wizard. So if you're used to installing things like Ubuntu and Linux Mint and things like that, even the Debian installer, it is different, and it takes a little bit of looking around. Assuming that you get it all installed and everything's working, this is what you're going to get. We will log in. I have not done anything to this desktop at all, except increase the font size. And it's actually pretty groovy. They have an interesting twist on the Cinnamon desktop. That's the one I chose to install. Now, I must say, while this is loading up, that I am not an expert on RPM Linux. I know enough to kind of manage my servers, and I know what I learned in class when I was taking some classes about Linux a while back, but I don't use it on a daily basis, and so therefore I may miss features. I might actually get something wrong here. I haven't done a great deal of research on this distribution of Linux, so there you go, okay? This is just a look. It is not an in-depth review. If you want to learn more about it, have at it. I will give you the links to Fedora and Korora in the description to the video, and you can go read their wikis. So this is the Cinnamon desktop. It kind of, sort of looks a little bit like the Cinnamon, well, the way I set up Mate. If you've seen my videos where I'm recording on my machine that has Ubuntu Mate 1604 on it, this is how I kind of tailor that desktop. So they put the panel up top here. And yes, I did make one change. I put these icons here. So I have an icon for Firefox and Thunderbird. They do not come standard. There's no icons here when you first load the desktop. The backgrounds rotate, and so you'll be sitting here and every 5 or 10 minutes they change. The desktop is active, but they haven't put any icons on the desktop, so that's cool. So if you want to put like a home folder or a work folder or something on the desktop, you can do that. And then we can just go in here to the settings menu in Cinnamon. You can take a look around there, and you'll pretty much see that it is the Cinnamon desktop, and it works pretty much the same way. And they have some pretty nifty icons here. This uses the Arc theme. So let's look at the desktop settings. You can add a computer icon to the desktop, which actually probably would be a little bit more useful with the way this is laid out. You could do that if you wanted to, or you can turn the desktop off entirely. But if you've seen my videos about Linux Mint and Cinnamon, it's pretty much the same thing here. The settings are pretty much the same. And one of the things I really like is that the Korora folks have brought in, I think I typed that wrong. Hold on, let's do that again. There we go. They have brought in the users and groups tool that you find in Linux Mint, which is really nice. So here is where you can set a picture for yourself. It's all the same thing. Now you will notice here in groups, I want to take a moment and talk about this because it's really important. Then I'll tell you why I'm telling you about it after I'm done. Okay, so when I set this up, it prompts you to set a root password. You can have a fully active root account on Fedora. In Ubuntu, that root account is locked. So you really don't have direct access to it, and we use sudo to act as root. And that tends to be a little bit more secure. So when you install this, if you do not set a root password, you just ignore that setting, and then you set up your user, and then you tell the system, hey, I want to be the administrator on the system. Then what it does in Red Hat Linux is it adds you to a group down here called Wheel. Okay? Anybody that's in the Wheel group has administrative access, and they can use sudo to do something. Make sure that you do not take yourself out of that group wheel, because if you do and you do not have the root account activated, it is very difficult to damn near impossible to fix that. Okay, I did that to myself. I talked to a fella a couple of days ago who somehow figured out how to do that to himself on Linux Mint. And that is really difficult to fix. It's almost like, okay, you need to reinstall the system from scratch, okay? Because without root access to the system, and you can't use root privileges, you can't install anything, you can't change anything, makes it very difficult, okay? Just something I wanted to point out. All right, so we can take a look under the hood here. Let me go ahead and just cancel that. Close that tool. I'll add my little picture later. I think I'm going to keep this around for a while and play with it because I've been really impressed with the performance. It's a little draggy here in this virtual machine, but I'm only giving it a gigabyte of memory. So, it's the Cinnamon desktop. It's looking for probably something with a little bit more oomph to it. One of the first things I noticed that was kind of strange, when you open up a terminal here, and I'll make that font a little bigger and easier to see, they have a weird prompt. It gives you the time in military time, and then you have your username, and I don't get that. That would be something that if I was going to use this every day, if you spend any time in the terminal, that kind of annoys me. I don't understand why they did that. It's kind of weird. I've just never seen it before. Maybe it's something that somebody does somewhere and it's standard practice, but it's definitely not the standard prompt in Fedora, as far as I know. But there it is. So, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, I will introduce you to a little tool called DNF, which is the package manager that is in Fedora these days. So if you want to update the system, sudo dnf update. And it works a lot like apt. Okay, so you can sudo dnf install, sudo dnf remove if you know the name of the package. And this system's up to date, so there's nothing for it to do. They also provide you with an application over here that actually I had not heard of or heard much about in a long time. And it's called the Yum Extender. They put it over here on this little plank. Plank is just a dock that you can run in Linux. And if you don't want it there, you can just get rid of it. As a matter of fact, with the Cinnamon desktop, I really don't think I'd want Plank because I'd use the favorites and use the menu. It's just as easy. I don't really need Plank hanging around over there. But it's an interesting touch, and if you like it, you could keep it around. So they have a package manager here called Yum Extender, which is a little bit confusing because you're probably saying, okay, well, I don't understand. You just said the package management system was called DNF. Well, it used to be called Yum, and then they introduced DNF a couple of versions ago, and that replaces Yum. But Yum Extender, the program, has been around for a while. So we can look at all the installed packages here, and we can look at packages that are available for the system. And it's really not that intense of a graphic installer. It's just the package name, and down here, if I click on something, it's going to give me the information about it. So, not super intuitive, especially for people who are brand new to Linux, but very functional and very minimalist. There is no right-click menu on this, so you would essentially just check it whether you wanted to remove or install the software, and you could do a search here. And of course, they have it in groups as well. They have software grouped off, so if you want to find packages in these groups, there you go. And you can also run updates here, but to tell you the truth, running updates in this system is just so easy to do from the terminal. I don't think I would ever open that thing. You could also install Gnome software that is definitely in the repositories for Fedora, and it is supported, and that would give you a more graphical installer, but it doesn't seem to be here by default. Of course, I haven't looked, so let's see if they have that installed as well. No, they do not. There is also not any graphical application here to manage repositories in Fedora. That's pretty much all done from the terminal, so you're not going to see something like software sources or things that allow you to choose different mirrors and things like that. That's something that all of that administration would be done from a terminal with commands. So if you wanted to get into this, I would definitely look up everything that there is to know about DNF and spend some time over there in the Fedora wiki and learn your way around. Oh, let's do that again. It'll fill the whole thing, hopefully. There, that looks better. So this is the man page for DNF. And goes through and explains all of the different commands for it. But it's very similar to like what you do with apt, or in OpenSUSE they have zipper. All of these applications, even Pacman, they tend to kind of work pretty much in the same way, and they're not too far off, so different distributions. That's what makes them different, is the package management system. Okay, while we have a terminal here, let's take a look at what kernel we have running. We have 464-301 Fedora kernel, I guess FC24. There you go. That's what that is. The system created an LVM by default because I allowed it to partition the drive automatically. So it put everything in an LVM. So that's what you have here, and it creates a boot partition which is not in the LVM. So that's how that is done. We can take a look at how this is doing. Let's clear the screen, please. And we will take a look at how this is doing with memory. Don't type clear. Please type the command you're looking for, which is free. And we'll make it humanly readable to see what the system is doing. So, just from the goofing around we've done, it's using 522 megabytes of memory, and it is 992 megabytes total in this machine. We have a 2 gigabyte swap area, and it's using 72 megabytes of that. So let's see here. It probably won't tell me that unless I do it with administrator privileges, but we're going to try it. Yep, swappiness is set to 60, so that's something that you might want to check. We just did a bunch of videos about swappiness. Okay, so we can go on and get out of the terminal. And let's just take a look here at what we have up here in the menu. It comes with the menu. It comes with a show the desktop icon. I added these icons. And then we have display. The little applet is kind of stuck here in case you want to change anything about the displays. I guess that would be very useful if you had dual monitors. And notifications. Removable drives. And then we have a desktop switcher here. So just switch desktops. Looks, like I said, very much like I think I said earlier in the video, this looks a lot like the way I set up the Mate desktop. And let's see what else here. We got some desktop settings there. We have the network, volume, all the standard stuff, and the clock. You click on that, get a calendar. So, pretty straightforward. And we have a ton of software loaded in this thing. Just looking under sound and video alone, we got Audacity, Bracero is installed, PTV is here, which is a video editor, Pulse Audio volume control, Rhythm Box for playing back music, Sound Juicer, which is I guess a CD ripping program. I think that's what that is. So you can take CDs and convert them to different files. I tend to like a Sunder. Yep, that's what this is. That's exactly what it is. So you have a full Office suite. Just a ton of software. I'm not going to go through all this, but it's pretty much all the basics and then a little bit more. So we've taken a quick look around here and taking a look at this wonderful distribution called Korora. So far, so good. It installed easily. It runs well. I was able to install all the updates without any major issues. And very cutting edge. Seems to be well supported because Fedora is a very well supported and it's a well respected and I want to say elderly, but it's not. I mean, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's been around for a while. Let's put it that way. We're blanked out on that word. So, yeah, this is pretty cool. I don't know whether I would use this as a daily driver. I don't know about getting software for it. Of course, that's always been my problem with RPM-based distributions is getting every piece of software that I need. But since there are things out there like app images and Flatpaks and Snapd is available in the Copper repository for Fedora, so you can install it from there, and then you can use snap packages as they come along. Maybe, this might be something that you could use, for sure. Might want to check it out. So that's about all I have to say about it. This is just a look at this distribution. I really don't know enough about it to go on and on about how it works and all that kind of stuff. But I just figured I would show it to you guys, and I'm really impressed. I have not had a great deal of luck with Fedora. Every time that I've installed it, it tends to be a little bit shaky. Packages I can't find, hard to get configured. These guys really seem to have polished it up and smoothed out the edges, and this is a pretty slick looking distribution of Linux, and I think my Cinnamon desktop just crashed. But it is running in a virtual machine. Whether it'll do that on hardware, I don't know. What is it doing? Is it restarting itself? See, I was saying all this nice stuff about you, Korora, and then you do this, man. I don't understand. I'm confused. Now, let me reset the desktop and we'll see what happens. I sent it alternate control backspace. My mouse kept disappearing down at the bottom. I was having a hard time finding that. And that didn't seem to do nothing at all. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's a look at Korora 24. And I was getting ready to wrap the video up. So, we have a crashed desktop. And that's how this video is going to end. I'm not even going to comment on it. Please take a look at freedompenguin.com. Lots of great articles there from contributors such as myself. And also take a look at Easy Linux on the web. Take a look at Easy Linux on Facebook. And if you would, give it a like. Would appreciate that. And if you are interested in learning more about Korora, you can check the link in below for that. Also, I'll have a link to the Fedora projects page if you want to learn more about Fedora as well. Let's see if it came back. Nope. Oh well.